technical explanation, and I'm here live with Matt Sorochinsky. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, Bryce, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm just excited to talk wrestling. It's the best part of my day. Really, it's awesome. So it's cool to have another person on here, and I'm ready to talk shop if you are.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, but before we go into that, I want our audience and people that are watching to get to know a little bit about you outside of wrestling. So you tell us a little bit about where you're from, what you do for a living now when you're not officiating, stuff like that.
So originally I grew up in upstate New York. So a small town called Johnson City. Some people might be familiar with Binghamton. It's about an hour south of Syracuse, right on the Pennsylvania-New York border. And then about 9 years ago, I moved out here. Currently I live in Wadsworth, Ohio. So obviously I have a good wrestling program, which is pretty cool. And I've got to meet Coach G, the legend, when I came out here originally. So lots of great people in wrestling. But currently I work for a pharmaceutical company, Bristol Myers Squibb. So I promote medicines, patients living with multiple sclerosis currently.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, Wadsworth, so you were here to see them break St. Ed's streak then, right? That was right around the time when they beat them for the team title.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Pretty impressive. But now let's get to wrestling. So you said you're from New York.
Yep.
How did you, I have your resume. How'd you get involved in wrestling first before we get into that?
Yeah. So, family. My dad, was a two-time New York State high school champ. He went on and wrestled at Brigham Young University. Was a Division I All-American also. And then, when he got out of college, my older brother started wrestling. He got into coaching him. And, as a result, my older brother's 5 years older. So, he was pretty much in, when I was like 4 or 5, he was 10. So he's already, through, fully involved with wrestling. So, it was a no-brainer because it was either, sit in the stands or play under the stands or get out there and wrestle because I'm going to be at a wrestling tournament every weekend. So, and that's kind of how it happened, and unlike some people, I went out there and I have pictures. I ended up pinning a guy that had no idea what I was doing, but I was smiling the whole time. And it's really cool to see those pictures. But I guess you probably tend to smile more when you're winning, right?
Yeah, usually. Yeah. But that's awesome. Not many people, their first experience, they go out and pin. No.
And I don't remember winning or losing. I really don't, like early on. Like I would just remember that because there's pictures. So, but I just remember having fun, and really like being around wrestling and my dad and my older brother and kind of grew from there.
Yeah, it's awesome when it's a family affair. And you said that at like 4 or 5 years old, you said, came to the realization it's either play under the bleachers, play with friends or do the sport,
Yeah.
But that's really what it is. And then when you get older and you realize how cool is this, I'm getting to do the sport I like and I get to be around my dad, my brother and stuff, it's family and wrestling. Those are top of my, other than faith, family and wrestling are top of my list. You mentioned college wrestling. So I'm just going to go through these. You went to Ithaca College, correct?
Yep.
Correct. Two-time NCAA All-American.
Yeah.
You're in the Hall of Fame at your high school at Ithaca. And I thought I just read not too recently, aren't you and your dad being inducted in New York?
No, there's a bunch of fathers and sons that are being inducted, like Mitch Clark's, I think, getting inducted with his father.
Okay.
And I think there's one other I was reading. So,
okay.
But no,
mistake.
We have not been inducted in, Hall of Fame together. But
my
that's
mistake.
Cool.
But yeah, you're in Ithaca's and your high school's Johnson City, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Shout out to, you said close to Binghamton, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then, it's just amazing. And you've officiated 12 NCAA D1 championships. You've done 2 and 3, right? And then of those 12, you've been on the mat in the finals. Pretty awesome. So a lot in between there. But tell me about what do you remember anything about your high school days? Like, when did you fall in love with the sport?
I think early on, it was immediate. I really loved it. I had a lot of fun and I know that's kind of how it was, organized. And, obviously as you grow on and it gets more competitive, It wasn't long before, back then, even then, wrestling in the Tulsa Nationals, which is a big tournament today. It was a huge tournament back then, getting bumped early on. But we lived in New Mexico at that time when I started wrestling. So gets a little perspective. So that was just a little jaunt over not too far. And I think that's it, just the competitiveness. And, wrestling's like, you don't realize how much you love it until it's not there, until you step away and you're not involved with it. So, I had ups and downs, growing up, especially in high school, kind of towards the end, in the middle, my sophomore, junior years, I got tired. I wouldn't say burned out, but I was heading down that path. And then got some new coaches my senior year that came in that just completely revived me. And I essentially just fell in love with the sport again and was able to take that on into college.
Then your senior year is the year you won the New York State Championship, right?
Yep.
Did those coaches try to claim they're like, oh yeah, we taught this kid everything?
No, they're awesome. I mean, Pete Capone, he was a 2-time New York State champ. He was Division I All-American also for Hofstra. He was a runner-up in the Nationals. Rick Gumbel, he was the head coach. He coached Troy Nickerson also at a different high school after. But he's, just an amazing coach. He's involved with USA Wrestling. He does a lot on the Greco side too. And, and then another guy, Matt Gallagher, who is a Division I wrestler. He's currently a unbelievable superstar football coach at a local high school called Maine Endwell. And he won, I think, 3 or 4 state titles in a row. I mean, it was on ESPN, featured in a bunch of different things. So, those were my 3 coaches my senior year, and they were all young, and it was awesome. It was really an awesome experience.
Probably could have went the exact opposite way too. I mean, that's pretty sweet that you get 3 young guys like that.
Yeah.
You said something before, though, right at the beginning of this, about you didn't realize how much you loved the sport until it was gone, or you were competing or something. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I get to coach junior high, and I'm in the room for the high school too. And we always tell the seniors that they got senioritis and they're complaining, and it's like, yeah, no one wants to cut 2 pounds their senior year or whatever. But I guarantee you, if you don't go down to this weight class or whatever, or if you don't practice hard this week, there is going to be a time after you walk out of these halls of this high school that you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have done that one thing, or I really miss wrestling. And it's sad, you don't know what you have till it's gone, I guess. But I hear that from a lot of people.
And I was listening to the podcast with Kevin Linich, and you guys we're talking about the things you get to do, and I think it's a perfect example. For me, one of those situations is an injury. I broke my elbow, dislocated it really bad, and had to take some time off. And that time off kind of just you start to miss it. You start to see what it's there. But what a blessing, the things we get to do. And wrestling, it's something that we get to do. Not everybody gets to do it, and injuries sometimes block us from that. So
I love that. It's been a huge part. It's been a huge part of changing my mindset. So I love that. So when did you coached and you coached after you wrestled? When did you get into officiating? When did you say, okay, I want to get on the other side of the table, so to speak?
Well, it wasn't initially. So my first experience was in college. I was a sophomore in college, and my brother was officiating. My older brother was officiating at the time. And, it was an opportunity really for me. The motivation was to make money, make some extra cash, on the weekends, particularly outside of the season. At the end of the season, March, April, there's a lot of Pee Wee tournaments. They paid cash, usually $100, $150. It's as a college student, that's a ton of money. So initially it was just to make a little extra money. And then I got involved, and I don't know, it's did pretty well early on, and had some success. And, I think success just breeds, as a competitor, you want to do more, you want to do better. How far can you go? And so that's kind of how it started for me.
Okay. How many years was it before you made the jump from high school to college level?
So full time, I made the jump from high school to college in 2002. So prior to 2002, I was officiating and coaching, both. So I coached at the high school level for about 3 years, I think, after graduating from college. And then I took a full-time assistant position at Binghamton University. We were going from Division II to Division I, and that just completely eliminated officiating. There was just, it takes up a lot of time, obviously, as you can imagine. And so I had to put officiating on the hold for a while. And then I moved on into pharmaceuticals in 2002 and also picked up, decided to stay involved in the sport through officiating.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Whenever I hear Binghamton, I just smile because I think of Billy Baldwin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest supporter ever. Like,
yeah.
If all wrestling programs could just get one of those, it'd do wonders. So when you got to college, well, actually, first, let me ask this. You're a wrestling coach and you're officiating.
Yep.
What benefits do you think that, or if any, that gave you as a coach, knowing the rule book? Does it save you trips to the table? Does it make you a better instructor? Were there any benefits from doing both and being a high level wrestler as well? Probably, obviously, but.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really understanding, it's really, I think there's some insanity to thinking that all officials are going to call it the same. I think one of the things that I learned is that some individual officials, many of them are pretty predictable. I think that was the biggest thing that I took from officiating. Like looking back, I could see as a coach, routines that officials did. And there was really no surprises. Some guys would call stalling early, often, in certain situations. So, I was able to identify those types of things and kind of, be able to coach, to the individual official in a lot of cases.
And you're a mentor to an official association, correct?
Yeah.
What one's that? Give them a shout out, please.
So currently working with the Mid-States Wrestling Officials Association, which basically covers pretty much all of Ohio, but has officials from probably 15 states, I would say.
Okay. Awesome. And so is that something like when you're mentoring these newer or incoming officials, is that something that you talk about, not getting into a predictable routine and calling the match as it goes, or is that...
Well, no, just the opposite, control what you can control individually and not comparing to other officials, kind of look at, within, see what you're doing. How can you improve? How can you get better? The competition in officiating isn't versus the other officials, it's versus ourselves. We're the biggest roadblock, I think, to improving. And really, one of the biggest roadblocks is when we take our eyes off ourselves and we start focusing on others. It's really hard, to fix the problem, because the problem's not everybody else, and in almost every situation, it's us, and it's something that we need to change.
Yeah, that applies to a lot of things in life, right? Don't be comparing other people's house when your house isn't in order, right? Get your stuff in order and take care of business. Okay, so I'm sure you have plenty of stories with doing 12 NCAA finals, 7 finals. If you're allowed to say, I don't know, who's the most comical coach in the corner, maybe from things they say or how they say them, or...
Well, they're all pretty comical. When you get in the heat of the battle, some of the things they say, and in all fairness to them, a lot of them don't even realize the things that they say. I've had opportunities after to have conversations, and I say, "You realize you said that?" And they're like, "What? I didn't say that." Okay, so no, it's heated. Everybody's I don't know if I can pick out anybody in particular, but and a lot of times I don't hear it. Where I hear it, it's funny, is when I see it after, online or on social media, at the Big Tens. One particular coach was said that I didn't like tough wrestling. So and a lot of the guys that are in my mentoring group, they kind of remind me from time to time, in different situations. Oh, you called that way because you don't like tough wrestling. And, so we get a good joke out of that. But no, it's I don't know if there's any one thing in particular, but I can tell you, most of the coaches have really good sense of humors, and they come up with some pretty funny stuff in different moments.
There's some characters. Yeah. And you know, when I first met you, you know, before this call, you didn't strike me as a person that likes tough wrestling either. So just
not at all. Not at all.
Not with that background.
You know, you can rip their arm off. You can't take it home with you. I mean, that's kind of where I draw the line. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, I mean, is there anything different between prepping or like the pressure or your mindset when you're going into an NCAA level match and it's televised, as opposed to, you know, a high school match that's not televised or not as high profile? Like,
yeah, no, I mean, less and less it's different. You know, I mean, I think initially early on, you know, there was big difference. There was a lot more fear. There was a lot more nervousness. You know, today it's a lot more excitement. You know, I know I'm prepared. You know, we work really, really hard. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't see behind the scenes, the amount of hours that we put in, the work that we put in. It's almost identical to wrestling, like NCAA wrestling. You know, the officials at the top, it's an everyday, you know, job for them. You know, it's all of us are working out every day. So we're investing a lot of time. We're talking on the phones, different situations. We're reviewing video, going over situations, you know, mentoring others. So when you take a look at all of those different things that we do, man, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort, and there's a lot that I think the great officials invest, you know, into getting where they're at. You know, it's not by luck. It's not by chance that these guys are at the highest level. They've done a lot of work, and you know, a lot of people don't get to see that.
I'm so glad you shared that, because the whole purpose of this show is to shine the spotlight on wrestling officials who make competition even possible, right? And a lot of times, and you kind of, you know, when you mentioned coaches say crazy things, right? And it happens at all levels. Your emotions when you're competing, whether you're a coach or a competitor, can do some crazy things to your brain, right? So, and I think in those times of that emotional instability, let's call it, because I'm a coach, I've had it too, so I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
You know, you forget where you are and what you're doing, and you're actually talking to another human being that cares just as much about the sport as you. It just so happens, as Fred Feeney said, he's thinking with his brain and you're thinking with your heart, you know?
Yep.
So it's really important to keep that in mind. I had no idea, you know, I didn't even think about it. It makes total sense, but working out to stay in shape and you know, get in position and stuff, never even thought about that. It hadn't crossed my mind until you mentioned it. So
yeah. And just preventing injuries, you know, especially I'm getting older now, and, you know, so it's getting harder and harder. And you got to do more and more, and you got to be smart. And, you know, because I can't do the things, you know, the way that I prepared when I was 30, you know, if I continued to do that today, I wouldn't be officiating. There's no way.
Yeah, you got to be ready. Got to be ready for those mat monsters, right? I saw someone today in a high school official tripped on the mat, but he turned it into a somersault and still called the takedown. It was the coolest thing ever. But
no, that's awesome.
So you wrestled D2 first, right? In college? Nope. D1?
No.
Oh, you coached D2 and D1. Oh, D3.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I coached. I wrestled Division III, and then when I got out, I coached high school. I coached Division III college. I coached Division II and Division I.
Gotcha. So not too long ago, there was some good talk going on about how few and far between the wrestlers are that get to wrestle in college. Like, I think it's like 1%, you know, it's something insane. And a lot of people have this mindset that D1 or bust, like that's the only way to go, but couldn't be further from the truth. So, could you speak a little bit to any athletes that might be listening to this about how that's not the way to think, and that, you know, if you still have the love for the sport and you want to compete, you can have a great career, D3, D2, or D1. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still, it's college wrestling, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't speak to, you know, obviously on the coaching side of it, I can speak to Division I and Division II, but from an athlete's perspective and competition, you know, the D3 was a great fit for me. You know, if I had to do it over again, I would do it over and over. You know, the experience that I had, you know, the balance, you know, that I was able to experience at Ithaca, was really cool. And, you know, could I have wrestled Division I? Yeah, probably, you know, with the credentials and where I was at. But I don't know. I just felt like, you know, when I went through the recruiting process, you know, Ithaca was just the fit, you know, just all around. And, you know, my goal, I don't know if many are like this, but I was, you know, looking beyond wrestling. You know, I knew at some point wrestling wasn't gonna, you know, put food on the table for me. You know, it was going to end, and, you know, I was going to have to move in a different direction. And, you know, how am I going to, you know, what college, you know, what experience is going to prepare me best for that? And, you know, so those were the things that I was kind of juggling. And, you know, I really wanted to graduate. I was the first one, technically, to graduate from my family from college. So, you know, that was a big priority for me. And, you know, I just felt like when it was all said and done, Ithaca was going to give me the best opportunity, not just wrestling, but, you know, to graduate and then to move on in life and be prepared, you know, to take on, you know, to go to work.
Is Ithaca's wrestling team still intact?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're doing well. They're perennially in the top 10 in Division III.
Every person I've ever heard that's gone to Ithaca, like, loves it. Like, it seems like a really, really cool place. And I have a couple of friends that when we were picking out schools, they're like, I'm going to Ithaca. I'm like, never heard it, but I'm glad you love it. And then they came back and they're raving fans. I mean, can you name a couple of things about Ithaca that you really enjoyed, or
I mean, everything. It's just, you know, for me, I came kind of not from a really diverse community in Johnson City. So going to Ithaca was just submersion in this diversity. There's so many diverse cultures with Ithaca and Cornell. I mean, there was a lot of firsts for me at Ithaca, you know, experiences, which was awesome. And, you know, I remember the other thing from the wrestling side of it, you know, having Cornell on the other side. When I came through, Jack Spates was the head coach at the time, and he brought in Rob Cole. Rob Cole was his assistant, and Rob was training for the Olympics in 92. So my freshman year was 91, 92. And so I got to work out. Well, I got to get beat on a lot by Rob back then. And we just had a really good relationship between Cornell and Ithaca. So got to work out a lot in our clubs, you know, awesome. Together. So it was really, from a wrestling standpoint, it was great. Okay. You know, and then, you know, from a college standpoint, it's one of the most beautiful campuses on, you know, on the planet. Just that whole area between Cornell and Ithaca. It's nice.
I got to make my way there and get a couple different wrestling shirts, add to the collection. Yeah. So you mentioned, you know, you wrestled in New York. You're living in Ohio now. You travel for officiating. You've seen athletes at, you know, all different levels. Do you notice like a difference in style between wrestlers from different states? Like, I mean, there's like a PA style and a New Jersey style. You mean a type of wrestling? Do you notice that at all? Or?
Yeah, no, I mean, but you see it, you know, you see it from different programs. You know, Oklahoma State's got a distinct style from Iowa. You know, I don't think that there's probably more differences than similarities, right? But, you know, but then again, you look at the Big Ten. Big Ten seems to be similar. ACCs, they have a little bit different style, you know, than the other conferences. But from state to state, I don't know. I mean, PA is just tough, you know, and that's where, you know, as a kid, just living over the border, I mean, that's where we, you know, 99% of our tournaments that we wrestled in were in Pennsylvania coming through. I remember getting the snot beat out of me by Cary Kolat in the finals of Northeast Duels when we were like 12.
Well, anyone with a memory that wrestled him probably has that same memory too.
No, listen, this is actually a really good story. So I was pretty cocky, and so I'm getting to wrestle in the finals, and this guy's got like sunglasses on and a Superman cape, like a towel as a Superman cape. And this is Cary at the time. And I'm thinking, you know, I have no idea who he is, and I don't know if he was established at that point, you know. But I was like, I think I was eating a hot dog. I was like, I'm not even sure I'm gonna have to warm up for this one. And So back then it was 2 periods. You had a break in between in freestyle. And it was tech fall was 15 and I was down 13-0 at the break. So, yeah. It's funny. I don't remember a lot of the wins, but man, do I remember the losses. And, when you get thumped, I think he took me down and laced me like 4 times.
Well, that's a competitor in you. A lot of things that you've mentioned that you're competitive, right? I think a lot of people that are competitive remember those losses for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably not the best thing to do, but I'm pretty competitive too. And I tend to remember those. I got a name I'm going to throw out there and see if Sittler. There's a
Jeff Sittler.
Yes. I spoke with Jeff today and he told me a story about your dad and his dad and wrestling. Do you remember that story?
No, I know he's told it. I know he grew up in a really tough area of wrestling in Pennsylvania. Okay. So he's a little bit older than me.
Gotcha.
So what, you remember the story that he told you?
Well, it was that your dad and his dad were coaching. And you guys had a really good team. And I guess they beat you in the duel or the scrimmage or something like that. And then your dad was like, so, how many state champs do you think you're going to have next year? He's like, none. He goes, how many state placers do you think you're going to have? He's like, maybe 1 if he's really, really lucky. Your dad's just like, you're serious? You're serious right now? So I just thought it was pretty funny because I was like, I'm talking to Matt later. So you got any stories? You told me that one. So
yeah, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. I know he's involved with that Autism for Wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Does a lot to give back to wrestling and just a solid all around guy.
Yeah. I'm learning so much. I thought I knew. It's so cool to hear these stories. What about, okay, here's a tough one. This came up in a call yesterday. Not a tough one, but what are your thoughts about the American wrestling system? You start out and you're wrestling one style, you wrestle that way, and if you're blessed or fortunate enough, maybe you can travel and wrestle freestyle and learn that when you're at a decent age. But for a lot of these kids, it's not until college that they maybe get, probably not a lot, I guess most of the kids that are making it to college have wrestled freestyle. But do you think that there's any, we're doing ourselves any disservice by wrestling essentially 3 different styles when the other countries are wrestling freestyle their whole life, learning a system?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw recently that's been a hot topic, online and in many of the social media realms. Personally, I think the folk style helps with the freestyle. I do. I think freestyle helps with folk style. I think it goes both ways. I think being on the mat's important, and getting opportunities. I think where, our style, if it hurts any style, it's probably Greco. And that might be why Greco, hasn't had the results that the freestyle has had. I don't know, but that's a tough question. I've heard people ask that, what can we do? And man, we've got some of the greatest minds in wrestling, working in the Greco program. Matt Lindland does a great job. Gary Mayap was there for a number of years. He's a former Division I official, unbelievable guy, coach. And, they've done well, but, just not to the level that they haven't had the success that the freestyle teams had. So, how do you get them there? Great question. I don't have the answer. I would love, I love watching them, and we've got some competitors, and it's crazy because they're so darn good, and then they're not getting the results, and you're thinking, man, how good are the rest? It's like
it's amazing,
just head scratchers to me, because we do have some really superstars in Greco.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I probably would have before this last Olympics, I probably put myself in that camp of, you probably should just learn a style and stick with it. And I regret saying that, but now after seeing how we wrestled, folk style won us a lot of those medals this year.
So a lot of people, that's the argument, and some say no, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to change. So
yeah, we're just lucky we have 6 weights in, in men's and women's and freestyle. It'd be nice to get back to 10.
Yeah, the World Championships was awesome. I so enjoyed watching the 10 weights, and and especially seeing the women, just kick butt and take names. Awesome. I was actually upset the first day, the first round, it was only men's. Like, you had to flip over to mat 2 to see the women, but then it kind of all evened out round 2, and moving forward they were going back and forth, which was cool. But I tell you, I really enjoy watching our women compete. They're amazing. And yeah.
Well, last night I was doing a show and we were talking about women's wrestling, and with 2 coaches in Ohio, Vanessa Oswalt and Brian Nicola. And they've got a huge program, great program. And we were just talking about the Olympics and everything. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it. This is only, I think, our 4th Olympiad for the women. And look,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So in the 3rd one, Helen Maroulas beat Yoshida, who's won as many gold medals as Olympiads there's been for women's wrestling. I mean, it's just,
she won every one of them, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's insane.
It is.
It's really cool to see that. The rise of women's wrestling too, even on the college level and the high school level. What do you think we need to do to make officiating more attractive for young women?
I think as women get more opportunities and are elevated, to the equal as men, I think it's just going to be a natural progression for women to take on more responsibilities. Because you get women that are involved in wrestling, not all of them are going to be able to continue on. At some point that ends. So how do you stay involved with the sport? I think that's that's going to be the elevator pitch. When they get done, when these women get done competing, if they're not going to go into coaching, officiating is a great way to stay involved with the sport and give back.
I'm glad you said that, because that was kind of exactly what I was saying. Is like, look, if you got these young ladies and they're not going off to college to wrestle, but they just had the time of their life with the sport they just discovered. It's a perfect opportunity,
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on with the representation too. So hopefully we start seeing that.
Well, and then you'll see opportunities move over on the men's side, because obviously we're seeing females referee men's sports all over the place. So there's still going to be opportunities for them there as well.
Yeah, just my cousin Jared Upfer, on his podcast, he sent me an article today. In Oregon, they said history. They had an all-female officiating crew for a football game, first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's really cool to see that. And I sent off a group text. It's like, who will be the first school in Ohio to do this? Competitor. So let's talk about some of your favorite tournaments at the college level. What was your favorite NCAA Finals that you got to do?
They're all favorites.
Well, what was the cool one?
The cool one, I would say, I'm going back. Gwizdowski's first national title, he beat Tony Nelson.
Yep.
That was kind of a cool final. There was a lot of stuff going on in there. There was some stalling calls. There was an injury timeout. There was a lot of technical officiating, and that was cool. And then there was a call right at the end on the edge with like 10 or 15 seconds to win. That was definitely a memorable moment. I had Imar's first national championship. He wrestled Real Buto from Cornell. And what was memorable about that, he won by major, but what was memorable was it was my first video review on national television. The first time, it was only, I think, the second year that we had video review. In the first year, I didn't have a video review. In the final, I had my first final was 2013. I had Jordan Oliver and Jason Chamberlain.
Oh, cool.
And it was like, I'm nervous. It's 1-1, like with 10 seconds left in the third period. And I'm thinking, great, my first final's going to overtime, and it's not that there's any easy ones, but and Jordan Oliver ends up getting the takedown with like 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's had a couple barn burners, the one that finished his way and one that didn't, right?
Yeah. So that was memorable, because it's funny watching it too, because I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm kind of just which way do I look? Which way do I turn? Do I push the button? Is it going to go on in the arena? Is it just in TV? There's a lot of kind of unanswered questions. It was all new territory for me, but that was fun. It's really fun to look back at that and think, you have no idea what's going through my mind right there.
Yeah. Existential crisis, probably. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So when you go back and watch, is it funny to see, or I mean, is it very noticeable and kind of like, wow, how did I do that then and look at where I'm at now? I mean, do you see that progression?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't, I will tell you this, and I tell people this all the time when I share that experience is, I'm not sure it gets easier. Like that was the big thing that I thought, I did my first final. I thought, okay, the next one will just be, no, it wasn't. Like I was just, there's something about getting up on that big stage, even if you've had experience doing it before, just a lot going on. There's a lot to manage. You've got hundreds of thousands, millions. I don't know how many people are watching, how many, between online and TV, and it's live and there's no do-overs. So it's, for me, today, it's just a lot of prayer, and just putting, the results in God's hands, knowing that, he's put the people in my life to prepare me, and I've done my best, given my best effort, and, just trust that things are going to work out exactly the way they're supposed to.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's sweet, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about growing the sport, specifically officiating. I want to ask you about this because it seems a little odd to me, but for coaches, at least in Ohio, so I can only speak from my lived-in experience, but to become a coach, every several years or so, you have to go online, take these tests. It takes about 8 to 9 hours, and then you do your concussion tests, and then you have to meet in person to do CPR training and stuff like that. And then you're good to go. You can be a coach. Officiating, in Ohio, at least for the most part, it's like 8 weeks, 2-hour classes. You got to go somewhere physically, do all that stuff. And it just seems to me that we're creating an unnecessary barrier to more people becoming officials by making them have to go to a physical place, when literally now you can do everything. And some people are going to work forever from home now in the post-COVID days. What do you think? Do you think, I mean, you still would have to do mechanics. I think you have to do that in person. But do you think if that's the model that it could be tweaked a little bit to be a little bit more flexible?
Yeah, I think so. And I get the in-person's important, but we've got a lot of new technology now that maybe we can leverage to simplify it, maybe to streamline some of these things that are important. I'm not saying they're not important, but like you said, I mean, but will things change? I'm thinking about it. Like, how do you get things to change? I think it's got to get to the point where there's enough hurt for change to happen, until we get to a point where there's not enough, like there's really not enough. Everybody's always saying there's not enough officials, and there is not enough officials. But have we seen the pain of not having officials? What's happened is the officials that are there are doing an amazing job, to make sure that events are covered, because of the shortage. So I think, can we make changes before that? I don't know.
My fear is that the pain's all going to come at once, because there's going to be a lot of retirements, and then the pain's going to happen. And we're going to be like, what do we do now? And then I always try to think ahead, and it's just going to hurt the quality of officiating. Yeah. It's going to hurt the competition and everything. So I think the other solution would be someone's just got to create it, Field of Dreams style, do it, get approved and
give it a try, throw some new solutions at it to see if we can simplify it. And, cause like you said, it's a lot, it's a big commitment.
What's your sales pitch then, if you're trying to convince someone that has expressed an interest in officiating, whether they've wrestled before or not? I understand that wrestling before, having that experience can mean something, but you could certainly be an excellent official and never have wrestled a day in your life if you really learn the rules and mechanics. What would your elevator pitch be to try to get someone to consider being an official?
Well, I think our biggest opportunity is with former wrestlers, right? People that have been involved with the sport, or maybe some way, some fashion. It doesn't necessarily have to be wrestling. You could be involved in other ways. And, so for them, it's like, stay involved in the sport. If you've wrestled, you may not realize it right away, but I mean, the values that it gives us, the gifts just are unlimited. And, when you get these gifts, I think, as a human being, we have responsibility to kind of give back and share that. And, I think as an official, it's a great way to stay involved with the sport. It's a great way to give back. It's an important job, and but it's very rewarding. At the end of the day, it is rewarding. It's rewarding to know that you're out there and you're doing the best you can to protect those guys, and and everything you can do to get the calls right. And and that in itself is rewarding. Because listen, it's a tough sport. Wrestlers, coaches, parents, officials, there's a lot that we invest. There's a lot of time and energy and pain and sweat and blood that's invested. And so to be able to give back and kind of help protect that investment, help these guys get to reach wherever it's going to take, that investment's going to take them, is what officiating is all about.
Wow, I like that. The smart schools, and I'm making a statement here, my opinion. Smart schools will have officials in at the beginning of the year to go over the points of emphasis, because it's a little bit different from last year or whatever. I'm thinking, from what you just said in some other conversations I had, like, it would be cool to try to have an official come in at the end of the year to speak to the outgoing seniors about maybe becoming an official, you know what I mean, and make money in college like you did. Because I've told this a couple times, but I was an official for a little bit. My story started in high school just because of a stupid injury, but then I realized, oh, this is going to be great money, and I'm going to be around wrestling, not getting rich, but I mean, when you're 18, 19, $100 is nice, right? So okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was just, Wrestlers in Business. I don't know if you follow the Wrestlers in Business Network, but they've got a really interesting model where they're having ambassadors from different universities, schools, wrestling teams, and then they're going into each of their teams and kind of sharing, I think the vision of what Wrestlers in Business is all about. I think we could come up with something like that in officiating, where maybe associations have ambassadors that go in and set time aside to talk to programs, like you were saying, specifically, for these outgoing seniors, to kind of just give them a roadmap of, what's involved in getting started, because it's maybe it's not as heavy as a lift that they have in their minds, and it's something that they would, take a step towards.
I think the other thing too is, a lot of athletes and coaches view officials as adversarial, like most of the time when you're in the corner there, it's, well, this is the guy that could cost me a match. Well, no, if your kid goes out there and tech falls the guy, it
scores more points.
Yeah, exactly. But so that doesn't help either, right? I mean, most of the time when you're talking to an official, unless you're outgoing, there's certain people, athletes like that. But most of the time when you're talking to an official, they're telling you what you did wrong and why you just gave up a penalty point on the mat. You know what I mean? Think about that. So if you never see the other side, the human side, I'm going to call, because you're still a human when you officiate, but you without the whistle, and having someone come in there and have that conversation couldn't hurt, right? That could be the low hanging fruit, at least. I mean, pick up a few officials, who cares? We'll take who we can get, right?
Yeah, and I think the MSWOA is working on something to kind of target new officials and even high school officials that might want to, expand into the college realm. So I think they put out sort of like a informational, like a advertisement video that should be coming out soon, I think.
Can you share that with me when you get it? We'll share it.
Yeah. I don't think it's finalized. I don't even know what the plans are with it, but when it is, I definitely will.
Anything we can do here at the show, we'll do for sure. Okay. So I'm looking at my list and I'm like, you some questions, dude. And these are the ones that I think people want to hear too. So what's a memorable duel match that sticks out to you that you've officiated?
I mean, Iowa Penn State at Carver Hawkeye is always going to stand out. I mean, it's just something special about that place, walking down the tunnel into Carver with 15,000 fans with fire and lights, and you just got to feel the energy, and you do feel the energy when you walk into there. Yeah, I mean, and it's just a super competitive. This last before COVID hit, 2020, they had that event sold out 2 months in advance, and it was awesome. It was competitive. There was there was, I wouldn't say upsets, but there was things that happened that just unexpected things, which always happen, and it did. There was, DeSanto got hurt, which wasn't expected. It's never, injuries are never expected.
But that's when RBY put a hurting on him, didn't he?
Yeah, well,
did he put his arm? That's when he put his arm behind his back, or
no? It was a cradle situation.
Okay.
His knee got tweaked out and twice.
Huh. Yeah.
So, but just great matches, and I'm trying to think some of the other ones. Rec Hall, anything at Rec Hall is, and now Ohio State with their new facility, it's very Rec Hall-ish.
Have you officiated there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had what did I have there? I think I had their match against Arizona State.
Okay.
Before the COVID, one of their first matches there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So of those, is Carver the one that has the most energy?
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're all. I mean, and they are now, because wrestling is they're just growing it, and coaches are doing such a great job at promoting and getting fans in the seats and making it an event. It's not just a bunch of wrestling matches. They kind of make it into an event, a fan event that's very fan friendly now. So another one I'm trying to think, Penn State and Ohio State, they sold out St. John a couple of years back, I think in 2019. That place was rocking. That
would have been awesome to be there. So you're on the call there?
Yep. And Michigan and Ohio State is always a good one. I had the Michigan Ohio State match when Coon beat Snyder. Yeah, that was an awesome match. But the whole duel was awesome. I mean, right from start to finish, just competitive, and it doesn't matter where teams are ranked. It's just, it's one of those rivalries where it's always going to be good. They're going to give everything they've got.
Yeah, it's a rivalry for sure. It's gonna be, I think, heated on the wrestling side. The football side, not so much, but it's been that way for the better part of almost 2 decades. So I gotta ask about the picture in your background there. What's the inspiration? Can you tell them the story you just told me?
Yeah, so that's Poncho. It was funny because I was like, I'm going to do something different. And the difference was I saw Mark Branch's photo online where he's riding his horse with his cowboy hat on, and the guys are coming off a mountain run. And I mean, that was sort of the inspiration. But this is my fiance's office. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to change this up. Everybody's got these nice backgrounds, in mine, I usually have just one of the, the default.
No, it's great. Mine looks like a Applebee's or something back there. I don't know. There's stuff all over the wall. Trying to fit it all.
That's Poncho. So that's Poncho, and thanks Mark Branch for the inspiration.
Awesome. So what do you have any big tournaments this year that you're looking forward to, or?
Midlands, I generally do every year. So, I plan on going back out there in December, after it was kind of cut down last year, right?
Yeah.
But that's the big one for now.
Okay. Awesome.
I used to do Vegas, but I've kind of cut back
okay.
on the travel, because it's a big time investment. It's 4 days of travel. You go out to Vegas, it's a 2-day tournament, then it's a day to get there and a day to come home. And
you got a job too, right?
and you got a job and you got kids. It's during the holidays, kids are off of school, and so I've done that. I've gone through all that, but now I'm at the point in my career where I'm kind of, prioritizing some different things, and which is I think not a bad thing.
No, it's good when you can pick and choose what you want to do with your time, right? Yep. I mean, that means you've done something right. Hey, well, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thanks a ton. I'm hoping this isn't the last time. Maybe I think it would be super cool to connect after the Midlands and just talk about some of the cool stuff that happened there. So
that would be awesome.
I got your number. I'll definitely keep you in mind if you're open to it. I am. But thanks again. Stick on here so we can catch up after the show. All right.
All right. Thanks, Bryce. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Awesome. So, the message that I share most often when I get a chance to share my experience with other officials, really revolves around a mindset. And there's two mindsets that it's taken me a while to really understand. But the first one is that making a mistake is never a mistake. And the second one is, understanding the difference between being right and getting it right. So, I talked about the first one. Making a mistake is never a mistake. And I'll tell you, I've had the opportunities to referee at every level, at the highest level of every level. And there's not one match that I walked off saying, I had a perfect match. I've always made a mistake. 100% of the time I've made a mistake. So thinking that we can be perfect, kind of just blocks us from growing and developing as an official. Instead, if we look at it as making a mistake is not the mistake. So what's the mistake? If making a mistake is not the mistake, for me, 99.9% of the time, it's not utilizing all the tools, all the resources that I have to get it right, and so for me, when I get through, it's, I look at the mistakes, but then, I go back and, what could I have done differently? What shouldn't I have done, or, what could I do differently? And to get it right, maybe I don't get it right in the moment. And obviously I want to. And at college, it's great because we have a lot more resources and tools to get the calls right. We've got video review, we've got a second official, so not getting it right, it makes a lot of sense, because what didn't I do? What didn't I use? Did I not slow down? Did I not, in almost every situation, pause it? Because I can tell you, when I get in a situation that's hot, my first instinct is to say, hurry up, let's go. Nothing to see here, folks. On the line, shake hands, let's go. And, and that gets me in trouble all the time. So, focusing on, utilizing the tools and getting it right versus being right. Listen, the results really aren't in our hands. What can we control? Can we actually control being right or getting it right? Not really. What we can control is using all the resources, all the tools that we have, and to get it right. So at the end of the day, I get off the mat. If I make a mistake and I look back and I've used all my resources and all my tools, then it's not meant to be, and I can lay my head on the pillow and go to sleep knowing that I did everything I could do in my power to get it right. But sometimes it doesn't. But I will tell you this: if you do use all the tools and all the resources that we have, you're going to get it right most of the time.
Hey Matt, that's good stuff, man. Question for you though.
Yeah.
If someone's looking to try to start to become, I think what a lot of what I heard is being a little introspective and thinking about things. And so if someone's looking to start doing that, is there a book or something that helped you along the way, or something that people could do right now to start trying to make progress towards being able to not have those two fallacies in their head?
I think it's just getting hooked up with mentors that understand that, and not just what they say, but what they do. And, in getting back to the mistakes, one thing I also wanted to mention, especially for these newer guys and even the older guys, coaches really in any life, but we're talking about officiating, coaches are far more likely to remember how you dealt with a problem rather than how you created it in the first place. And that's a mindset, that's a concept to really understand, because, even though you utilize all your tools and resources, it's not necessarily what you utilize or what you say. Sometimes it's how you say it. And, are you approachable? Are you, and if you're using all your tools and resources, you're approachable because you want to get it right, and coaches are resources until they're not. And I kind of remind them up front, hey, we're on the same team. We want we have the same goals. My goal as an official, my primary purpose, I talk about this all the time. 1, safety, protect the guys. And number 2, do everything I can do to get it right. And there's not a coach on the planet that's not aligned with those goals. So, and kind of reminding them up front, that's one of the things I do. Help me help your guys. Help me get it right for your wrestler. because at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. And you know, and I think for 99.9% of the officials, they have that same mindset. They want to get it right. And you know, so
awesome, dude. Hey, thanks again for your time. That's great insight. I can't wait to get that out there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yep, thanks.